Welcome back to the ZERT Coffee and Chaos podcast, a show where we talk about anything and everything relating to what it means to be a prepared individual and a survivalist in today's day and age. I'm your host, Chris Bartagone, ZP002. Back with me on the show today, Paul Taylor, Mr. X. Paul, welcome back to the show, man.
Hey, thanks for having me again. It's like a regular weekly thing, even though I think when you guys post, it kind of gets delayed, but.
Well, I mean, there's sometimes there's hot topics that are going on in the world today, and we always have to put that out there for our lovely viewers in this country, outside this country, and then there's topics that we have planned and are kind of either they're continuations or they're part twos or they're a topic that involves obviously more than just 1 hour. And sometimes we get into those. Sometimes they have to be delayed, Paul. It doesn't mean that we don't love you any less here on the show. You are a honored guest here. And it's great having you always.
What's great being here.
I know. Well, it's,
it's like I've got to fix this.
Listen. It's opposite. I don't know. That's way off. That's even worse.
Yeah.
Folks, if you are listening to this, and not watching it on
ZERT hats.
If you're listening to this and not watching it on YouTube, Paul is trying to adjust his hat. But obviously, if you are listening to this, it's on Spotify or Apple, and we appreciate that. Our shows go out every Thursday. At the time of this recording, one of those shows, our newest show, dropped today, so that's pretty exciting. The video usually follows a couple days to maybe a week after, where it follows up on YouTube. As always, if you're watching this on YouTube and you have not liked and subscribed to the channel, please do so. Hit the bell so you get notifications when the show goes up. If you have something to say about the episode, whether it's on the audio version or the video, please comment down in the comment section. We do read those and we do respond to them if they are good and exciting. And sometimes we will highlight them here on the show. So as always, thank you for your time joining us today for this episode. It is kind of a continuation, right, Paul? We have talked about something that is pretty important. People are aware of it. It's the OODA loop. In the past, we've already kind of discussed the observe part and the orient part, but it can be developed into a little bit more. And when we decide on these shows, I know I've talked about this before, you and I always kind of go back and forth, and we have some really in-depth conversations on topics. And what I love about the text messages that come usually before we jump on here is it's you throwing me out a one word or a couple of word sentence, and that's kind of the topic. And then we spend a little bit of time developing what the show sounds and looks like. So this one, you threw it out there, and I think it's based off of some of the things that you've been experiencing lately. And obviously it can kind of, I think it 100% can relate to stuff that I've been experiencing. And probably things that everybody is experiencing across the country. And that is becoming acclimated, and whether that is to the weather, to your surroundings, to what you're experiencing day to day in your job, in life, it can be open and applied to a lot of different things. I know that you have a couple things that you are directing it towards. So with all that being said, give me your thoughts, Paul.
Yeah, I think it's, well, and the thing is, and whenever I first started thinking about this, I wasn't even thinking about the OODA loop at all. But I think everything when it comes to training and preparing, I mean, it ties into the OODA loop. You just figure out where to put it in the OODA loop. And I think it falls between, and there's I believe, we all have our opinion. I believe there's definitely misconceptions when it comes to the OODA loop, especially with paragraph 2. You got observed and orient, and a lot of people think that that's like a physical orientation, like I must direct my presence or my body, my view into a certain area, and I'm orienting to a situation. And I think the orient paragraph is a lot deeper than that. And it's kind of like when you go to orientation in college, or at a school or at a workplace, and they give you like it's basically part of that plan is like this is how you are orienting yourself to a new environment, and part of that orientation to a new environment or new situation is kind of acclimating yourself to it, if you want to set yourself up for success.
Right.
It's adapting to change, and we do that every day.
Yeah.
Our lives change on a daily basis, and it's how
Yeah.
we choose to kind of adapt to that change, how
Yeah.
we choose to acclimate to it. And I think I know you want to say something.
Well,
But
I just think I want to make sure that everybody knows that that is a key point right there. If you want to be set up for success, it's important that you become acclimated to whatever that new surrounding is. So thanks for bringing that up, and that's why I just wanted to chime in there for a second.
yeah, absolutely. And I think we go through this. I mean, what we should we we go through this on a daily basis. And what kind of led me to this discussion is I I make the choice to stay acclimated with weather on a, and this wasn't always like this. And we go through our ups and downs, and it's, I think, something that we're going to talk about within the next hour is mental health and dealing with scenarios. It's like, man, sometimes we're in a bad spot, and we choose not to adapt to change, and we get angry, or we just, we sit around and we pout around, and then
Right.
eventually, hopefully we come around. But one of the things here is, as a firearms instructor, the other day here was 99 degrees, and I'm pretty sure
Yeah.
that's not that big of a deal for people out west, and so on and
Right.
so on.
Right.
But around here, and it's getting a little bit hot. So
Yeah.
I need to stay acclimated as a firearms instructor, whether it's hot or cold. I started teaching here at my range, and my first classes were in the winter, and it was cold, and it was
Yeah.
sometimes
You had
wet, and there's
snow.
a foot of snow on the ground, and I was
Right.
like, I can't just stay indoors in a heated house and then decide to go out and teach a class and not be acclimated. So I got out. I started shooting outside. You're outside shoveling snow. I had an opportunity to buy a snow blower cheap, and I chose not to, because I'm like, hey, I need to get outside and shovel my driveway.
Right.
And that's part of that becoming acclimated, just because you're outside doing stuff. And it was weird. I started teaching classes, and everybody's got like 3-4 layers of clothes on, and I'm out there in a t-shirt. I was like, are
Wow.
you crazy? I'm like, I'm just used to this. It's
Yeah.
because you spend so much time outside, and honestly, when you're teaching, you forget about stuff just because that's what you're thinking about, is teaching other people. And it's no
Right.
different if it's hot. And
Yeah, exactly. And I think becoming acclimated to the weather is something that obviously happens over time, right? You hear about people, and I have family in Florida, and you hear about people in Florida that when the temperature gets down to 60 degrees, they're freezing. They've got blankets on, they've got, hats and winter coats. And I lived in South Florida for 8 years, and I watched these wackadoos in like full winter gear, and it's 50 degrees out. I'm like, are you guys okay? What's the problem here? Like, and it's strange to me, because even spending 8 years there, I didn't become acclimated to the Florida weather, where I was cold when it was 50 degrees. Quite honestly, you give me between 50 and 70 degrees, and that is where it's optimal for me. Um, that being said, the like they just don't know how, like, they would literally die in another cold freeze, cold front, ice age type thing happening. And a couple of those people, like my family, they grew up, well, they started their lives in Connecticut, but they've been down there for so long, 30 years now, that it just doesn't they don't know what this weather is like yet. And you know a kid who is born and raised in the South, that does not understand winter and doesn't understand that kind of acclimation or being tough. I mean, my God, I feel bad for them.
Well, and it is kind of, because I understand Florida, and it's almost, I don't want to say it's like Florida or like Vegas, because Vegas is different, and it's hard to get acclimated to an area when you have such a drastic temperature change. In Vegas, it can be 115, 120 degrees during the day, and
Right.
then at night it gets down to 70, and that 70 feels like it's freezing, because it is
Yeah.
compared to 115 degrees. So but you do get acclimated to that, and it's one of those things where you got to spend the time. And my biggest thing, whenever I lived out there, my first year I lived out there, it was miserable, because
Oh yeah.
I moved out there right before right as summer was happening, and it's like, man, I'm going to die out here. I'm not used to it. I'm not, I was used
Right.
to North Carolina, where it's a different heat. And I would go from my air conditioned house to my air conditioned car to my air conditioned work. And I never
Sure.
got acclimated. And that's just, I think we live in a society that a lot of people do that. And
Right.
in my second year I was there, went through the winter, and I decided I wanted to get pretty active in the competition shooting world. And then I started helping out with these matches. Well, if you're outside doing these matches and helping out 3, 4
Oh yeah.
times a week in the Vegas desert,
Right.
there is no taking breaks all the time, especially when you're building these matches and you're doing that stuff. But I just chose to, what? I turned the air conditioner. I didn't turn it off in my house, but that temperature was set a little bit higher. Anytime I got my truck, I rolled the windows down, and didn't never use my air conditioning, and it just helped me. But I had to make that choice to do that. I had to make that choice to evolve with that change, to make sure, Lord forbid, and it's all
Right.
about being ready and being prepared, which is, what we talk about.
Well, and also pushing past your comfort zone. I
Exactly.
mean, don't sit there and accept that you are well, this is going to sound horrible, but don't just sit there and accept, you're cold and you need to just put on all these layers. Start getting out of your comfort zone, because there may be a situation in your life where you were not prepared, and you put yourself in a situation that is not comfortable, right? So we talked about this on a show before. I think it was either over the winter at some point, where there was huge snowstorms that came through and people were stranded in their cars overnight, and they were freezing. And I think maybe a couple of people died because obviously they weren't prepared. They didn't have blankets. I'm not saying that if you sit there and go out all winter wearing shorts and a t-shirt, you're going to be okay in sub-zero weather, but your body will be able to handle a little bit more if you kind of make sure that you get used to it. I don't know. Can your body acclimate correctly to the weather when you have 4 seasons? I don't know. I mean, are those seasons long enough or whatnot? But, one of
Yeah,
our
well, to answer your question, yes, absolutely, because weather just doesn't sneak up on us.
well, that's true. No.
There's a gradual change, and we have to change with it, and that
Yeah.
means get outside.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's the healthiest place for us to be, is
Yeah.
outside.
One of our ZERT members in POC, she was a POC. Her and her husband were a POC in Texas, and they just moved back to Alaska, and she loves it in Alaska, and the whole family does. I've seen her post pictures in the winter just out in like leggings and a sweatshirt, because that's what they're used to up there. And I mean, you've got to get acclimated to a lot of different things when you deal with a place like Alaska and their crazy sun, daylight, darkness cycle up there. But yeah, it's very important, and it will help you in situations where you are out of your comfort zone.
You brought up a really good point, and a lot of it has to do with time. How much time are you giving yourself to become acclimated? I'm pretty sure she just didn't move up to Alaska.
No.
I was wearing shorts and a t-shirt outside.
No,
it took her a little while, but
Yeah.
you get really used to those. You have to get used to that, or you stay inside all the time and feel sorry for yourself.
Right.
And as I'm writing stuff down, and I don't put a lot of notes, but I decided to write a few notes for this, just because
Of
I
course.
didn't want to forget anything.
Right.
And one of the notes that I wrote down is, we have to become acclimated to death. So if one of our loved ones dies, man, that's a change. And there's a time that we have to become acclimated. And I think when it comes to death of loved ones, there's a time and there's a need for mourning, and who knows how much time that is. And we don't want to, go cold turkey. It's like, oh, I don't need time to mourn. You have to go through that, and that time of mourning, of acceptance, of dealing with that, of moving on, that is becoming acclimated, and it's very important. Man, for some people it might be a week, some people it might be a year, who knows.
Right.
But that time is something that you need to go through. So that's, to me, is a little bit of an analogy, but it is part of that acclimation to a change. Now, it can be on a positive side or it can be on the negative. And if we focus on positive, like going out, we can feel sorry for ourselves, and part of that mourning is never getting over it. But part of that mental health and moving on is doing a positive assessment, and knowing that, that individual, I've had plenty of guys that, buddies that I lost overseas, and I can sit there and be sad about it, or I can sit there and think to myself, man, I would rather me to know these individuals and have lost them, and to mourn them and be happy that I've known these great Americans and these heroes, than never to have known them at all. And we can go through life going, well, I don't want to, have a pet because I don't want to lose a pet. Or, think about all that love that you would have never gotten, with having a pet, if you would have never been in that scenario. So I'm very grateful that I've had these friends, but do I mourn them every year on the anniversary of their death? Some of them on the anniversary of their, their situations, their experiences. But I've had to become acclimated to that in order to deal with that. And a lot of it is being in a positive space, mental health wise. And and that could go with weather or everything else that I have on my list right here that we are probably going to get into. Maybe.
Well, obviously the mental health side of things is a very important piece when it comes to that, and just everyday life, how people handle situations is unique, and it shouldn't be the same for everybody and for every situation, but it's 100% in your control to fight through that, or get out of that dark place in your head. Does it help to have people that you can talk to, and that'll listen and will kind of talk you off the ledge? Yeah, 100%. But at the end of the day, it doesn't matter if you can't realize that you're still in the fight and you push yourself through that. And that may be, I don't want that to sound like I'm being naive to certain situations. I understand that there is a level of dark places that people can find themselves in, but it's within yourself.
No matter how much help we get, how many people are there to assist us and give us a hand, we still got to want it.
Right.
I could have all the people give me all the information in the world. I still have to not only decide that I want to do it, but also, or decide that I want to, but also do it. You have to
Right.
apply that. I have to choose to become, acclimated to a new situation. And we keep saying that word acclimated just because that's the word of the day.
It is.
But it's just, it's just accepting that change, and you got to do that, and try to do that as positive as possible,
Yeah.
no matter what the scenario, because that's what, to me, it's, kind of what it's about.
Well, it is. And I think that there's a lot of people going through a lot of hard times right now. We're all dealing with inflation. We're all dealing with, shitty situations. I know I am 100%. And every day I have a battle to fight. And it's not always in my control. And it always seems that there's a day where I have to rely on hearing back from somebody to get through some of the hurdles that I'm dealing with. I had to get, obviously I've been pushed out of my comfort zone as a business owner versus working for other companies in the past. In the beginning, it was kind of cruise control, and now that that time is over, it's a whole different arena that I'm kind of out of my league. I mean, I'm the basic gladiator in an arena full of experts and warriors, and I'm trying to figure it out. Every day is a challenge, obviously, and it gets overwhelming. I literally have to watch mindless TV for noise at the end of the night, so my brain will shut off and I can just get lost in that, so I can fall asleep and hope that I do not get woken up or anything, because if I do, the brain turns on and I'm up at 4 a.m. and not able to go back to sleep. I am still not acclimated to this situation. I'm hoping that continued efforts will get me there, and I'm sure they will, but I also understand that I'm never out of the fight, and there's no quit. So it's just, okay, get to that next line in the sand, draw it, get to it.
But I think you said something really important right there, and you hit the nail on the head. Is you realize that there's change. Our situations are constantly changing, and it might not always be in your favor, but there's no quit there. So you're doing something about it. And I think that I don't want to say we live in a society, because I'm not trying to say that we're doomed or anything, but there's so many people out there that are just like, well, this has happened and there's nothing I can do about it. And they sit around and they just complain and bitch, and, and they, I don't want to say that there's always, they're making excuses, and we have a choice to sit around and mope around about it. And it's like, well, you know what? It's hot outside, and because it's hot, I'm just going to stay indoors, or you can choose to make changes in yourself and make changes in your situation. And I think that's a good thing, because that's what you're doing. And it's, and I mean, I see it all the time. I hate it when people always, you give somebody a problem, and it's like you get the answers where it's like, well, I don't know how, or the people that quit because they don't know how to solve the problems. And I've been fortunate enough to be surrounded, by people, especially in my military career, being a Marine scout sniper, or a Ranger or Green Beret, you weed most of those people out, you weed them out in the course. So then once you get to the unit, man, you're not surrounded by quitters. You're surrounded by problem solvers. And that's what you're doing right now. You're solving problems, and that's what it's about. I mean, I wouldn't want to talk to you as much as I talk to you if you're a quitter. And I think that you're the same way with me. I want to be, they have that, there's that quote, to be great, you surround yourself with greatness. And we all have our highs and our lows. And that's what life is. It's like, how do you respond to that? And I think that's what life is all about. I don't, one of the things that I have to become very acclimated to is the fact that I'm not the guy that I used to. I am physically not capable of doing certain things. And it kind of sucks, being that cool action guy back in the day, and being able to be at the, and we always say, man, when you look at some of these guys in the military, I mean, I looked at myself as a tactical athlete, and we didn't have an off season. We had to be
Right.
ready 24/7 for that deployment. And I was at,
Yep.
man, there was a time I was at the prime of my life. You know, I was happy with how fast I ran, how much I could bench, how much I could squat, how many dead hang pull-ups I could do. I mean, I was the cream of the crop. And guess what? That's just not the way it is anymore. I
Right.
have bad knees. I can never run again. And you know what? I don't accept that in a negative way. I accept that as a fact that I have to be acclimated to, this is how it is now. And I have to make changes, and changes in a positive view. Even though I can't do this stuff, this is still the stuff I can do. This is
Right.
still the stuff I can achieve. And I might not be able to do a national 3-gun match, but there are things that I can still do that gives me satisfaction and hope, and that I can still be proud of. And I'm not dead yet.
No,
So,
of course not. But let me ask you, I mean, can they do knee replacement surgery? Will that help you?
I
And
don't want to
again,
get into that. It's
okay.
you know, the VA tells me
Okay.
I got to wait till I'm 65. The fact of the matter is, if I do have knee surgery, I have to accept the fact that if I do things like I used to, there's going to be so much wear and tear that my knees are not going to last. So, and that's the biggest thing. They're like, you got to wait till 65 because we don't want to do it again. Well, whether I
that's
get
what
knee
they
surgery
were.
or not, I have to
Yeah.
take it easy, and that's okay. I'm okay with that. There's changes. I have to become acclimated to the fact that I got to probably take a little bit
Right.
easier than I used to.
Well, so here's the thing, right? Obviously, I've been there. I've gone through that, and that's what they told me. Obviously, they didn't want to do it until I was later, and I pushed back a decade ago. Obviously, I had my knee replaced in 2022, and I could have had it a decade prior to that, but I didn't push back enough because they said, well, you know, you're gonna. I'm sorry. The way that they said it to me is, if you do it this early, by later in life, we will probably have to amputate your leg below, your whatever, your thigh or whatever, because after a while, there's just not enough bone for them to work with. And that that sent me out crushed in life. I was just totally devastated. And then obviously fast forward to 22, I was tired of it. And I basically said, you know what? I don't care, because A, I have no idea if I'm going to be alive when you're talking. And B, I'm tired of waking up in pain. I'm tired of taking 4 or 5 steps before my knee works to where I can walk. I'm tired of my leg literally getting thinner and thinner. And so obviously I went and did it. Now, what I had to get used to is, I mean, kind of like I had to get used to not waking up or dealing with knee pain anymore. What is awkward for me still is I still can't take a knee on that one, even though I can without any issue. It's all numb in the front, and it's just the most awkward feeling ever. But I can run, I can do all of the things that I was doing before I had the knee replacement, but I just don't have the pain or the swelling afterwards. Again, that's kind of different, but I did have to get used to it in a couple of different ways. What I've had to get used to is not leading off, getting up with my right leg all of the time, which caused my right leg to continue to build muscle, and my left leg started to get smaller. So my left leg is smaller. All weird stuff, but you talked about it, so I figured we would just touch on it.
Yeah, I'm really happy that you don't feel pain anymore. Congratulations.
Yeah, hey, you could be there too, Paul. You could be bionic like me. And listen, you can ask for the Steve Rogers one where it makes wild noises when you run and you jump, and you can kick people through walls. Just saying.
Well, I make loud noises when my knee gives out, so
that's a different set of noises. Wait a minute, is it Steve Rogers? Is it what was the $6 million
$1 million
$6 million man? Yeah,
it's been a while. You're dating yourself there.
I am.
But no, that's just, not to dwell on, like, and it's not just knees. I mean,
no, of course,
our body goes through changes, and you got to
Yeah.
acclimate to those changes. We can sit around feeling sorry for yourself, or you can make something happen. I don't know if you and there's different topics that I want to cover other than health, but
Yeah, of course.
for the listeners here, if you haven't seen it yet, man, you gotta. I don't know if you guys are fans of pro wrestlers or not, but you gotta Google Diamond Dallas Page. DDP has a video series out where he does yoga, and man, he's changes people's lives, and people that never thought that they could walk or do anything again. And he gets involved in their lives, and these people, they could sit around and feel sorry for themselves, or these people made stuff happen.
Right.
And they're losing hundreds of pounds and walking and mobility, and this and that. It's, man, and it's just like they have not become acclimated to feeling sorry for themselves. And so, you know what, this is the way that it is. And I guarantee you my way of life is a lot better than it was in December, whenever I was 285 and I made the choice to start losing weight again. And my knees still hurt. They probably don't hurt as much. It's hard to recognize that when you're living with yourself like every day.
Oh yeah.
But there are probably, positive changes happening in my body just because I'm losing weight and stuff like that. So, but it's a choice we have to make, in a positive way.
Yeah. That is, and that's something that everybody can take away. Listen, gluten-free, carnivore, keto, whatever, right? I mean, processed foods. I think we can all agree that just processed foods and sugar is just not good for you. I'm not sitting here saying that I'm the pillar of healthy eating. I'm not. I have my cheat days just like everyone else, but I try and stick to something that is not as bad as it was. Did I eat McDonald's in my younger life? Yes, of course. Do I try? I can't tell you the last time I had any fast food. And those are all healthy choices, but it takes a minute. I mean, it takes a minute for your body to kind of get used to the lack of carbohydrates or whatever. I mean, if you look at your body like a machine and fuel for your machine, we don't have to get all into that, but it takes a minute. I know that when I start carnivore, by day 2.5, 3, like my body's kind of pissed off because it's like, all right, but that was good ice cream over the weekend, because I cheat over the weekend, and it's just like, that was good, and it doesn't like it. But here we are. We push past that, and we're good to go.
But it's funny that you should say that it takes a minute, because if I'm sitting there and I'm listening to you say that, and when you say it takes a minute, that's not just talking about your body going through these changes. It literally takes a minute to eat healthier. Like, fast food is just the convenience of it. It's like this country is on the downfall just because all you got to do is go to the store and order crap and give them your money to eat healthy. And with me eating healthier at my, thank goodness I'm retired and I'm only a firearms instructor, but I got all the time in the world. Sure. So it's, part of that meal planning is getting online, figuring out healthy meals, writing a list of groceries, going to the grocery store, buying this stuff, bringing this stuff home, preparing it, and, a couple months ago I was preparing for one. Now I haven't really got into it on this show. Now I'm preparing for two. Don't get too excited there, audience. But there's a lot more that's involved, and it's easy. It's convenient it's not cheap anymore, but it's easy and it's convenient to eat bad. And now to eat good, man, that planning process, it's crazy how much harder it is to eat healthy. But is it worth it? Absolutely. You have to get acclimated to eating healthy, and just that routine over and over again. But once you do, I think once you start doing it and get accustomed to doing it, and it becomes easier because now that's your routine, just like everything else that we do. But you got to take that first step. And we always make an excuse. Like, we've talked about this. I hate New Year's resolutions. And it's like, well, why do something today that I can put off till tomorrow? And that's all a New Year's resolution is. It's like, I don't need to wait until January 1st to decide to start going to the gym today, or eat better today, or
Right.
not doing something. Today's the first day of the rest of our life. So if it really mattered to you, that started today and not January 1st of 2025. New Year's resolutions are
Right.
stupid. And sorry
Well,
to offend anybody out there,
Well,
but
yeah,
if
that's
it's
okay.
that important to you or your family
Right.
or somebody, start it today.
How much discipline do you think it takes to not only obviously become acclimated to a new situation, but to remain vigilant with it? I mean, you know, I'll be the first to tell you that in my situation with eating a certain way, it takes a lot. And but I also will tell you that at 49 years old, it's okay to have an off day. It is. But if I wanted to, I know that I could. I just choose to just say, you know what? I'm going to live my life because it is. But I mean, how much discipline has it taken you to do this meal prep thing?
This is easy. To answer your question, how much discipline? All of it. 100% discipline. And that's the, and I'm not just saying that as a, 100, all of the discipline in order to do it correct. Cause it's easy to, think about somebody that smokes or drinks, or it's easy to fall off that wagon. Just one. And I'm not saying, and believe me, cause you got to have your cheat days. When you're eating healthy, you have to have that day, because it's hard when it's, certain things, it's all or, all or nothing. But I think that's part of that acclimation process is knowing that, I've never smoked, but I can't imagine if somebody smokes, how hard it is. And I'm not saying it's impossible, but for somebody to quit cold turkey, you have to start with the nicotine patches or whatever, and you wean yourself off that. I don't know, but that's part of, that positive change is acclimating yourself to not being a smoker. I'm assuming you can probably hit on that a lot better than I can.
So two things. One, I was a smoker, and I'll tell you about it in a second. What I find hilarious, my cousin, who lives in Florida, she did like I don't want to say bodybuilding, but it was more like the fitness competition where, obviously they get all leaned up, they get all cut and this, that, and then they go and it's the day of the competition and they paint themselves a awkward brown tan,
except for their face,
and then they put on, and the funniest thing is you watch all of those people, you've seen all of those bodybuilders, all of those people do it, like right after the show, they've got like 2 giant cupcakes and, a bag of McDonald's and a pizza, and they just start devouring it. And, I guess that's their cheat day, right? They go months and months and months preparing for these shows, and then their cheat day, they eat everything under the sun. I cannot imagine that feels good. But I
don't think they do this for their health. They don't do, because I think that's a unhealthy way to live.
Which part?
They're not doing this for their health.
Side?
Yeah, they're doing it for the show.
Yeah.
All it is for that one event, that one show.
Right.
And but hey, if that's what you want to do.
That's what they want to do.
We
don't need to. I would love to have somebody on the show that can talk about that and if it's actually enjoyable or not. I started smoking my junior year of high school. So, that's way back. They didn't even have electricity back then.
So cool. Probably.
Yeah. Cigarettes were 25 cents. I'm just kidding. I'm not that old, but I smoked up until 2016. And I don't remember what made me, but just one day I was done, and I was like, I'm all set. I think I had gotten sick and the taste of it just was horrible. And then that was it. One day I remember I was living in Savannah. I came up, I had a 5.5 hour drive each way from Connecticut to Syracuse for a 45-minute meeting to try and get a new distributor account. I was sick, but I knew I had to drive and I knew that would keep me up. And I got to within like an hour of being home. I took the rest of the pack, which was probably 3/4 of the way full, threw it out. And that was it. It was the last time I ever touched one. And I have not since then.
So you quit cold turkey.
Cold turkey. No, awesome. No patch, no nothing. That was it. Now I still smoke cigars, but that's it. I've never had another cigarette since that day. And I don't, and this is going to sound awkward, I don't remember it actually being hard to do. And just to give you a timeline there, I smoked from 1991 till 2016. So there's a pretty good time span of smoking cigarettes, but I did not have a hard time doing it afterward, or I did not have a hard time giving it up. I don't know why, but you know, it just,
well, there's certain things that, I mean, I'm not saying, I mean, first of all, I don't understand cigarette smokers, but I mean, that I don't understand it because that's something I've never done. And of course we all have our vices. I'm not saying I don't. And this and that. I mean, I guess shooting guns is a vice. I can't imagine quitting cold turkey or riding a motorcycle. Could you imagine that? I mean, somebody's like, you got to sell your bikes and never riding a bike. What would give me joy?
Right.
So I guess smoking cigarettes is that one thing that you look forward to every day or whatever. I mean, I guess I get it, but
it's funny. I still I make fun of my friends when they start having a cigarette. I'm like, oh, you can go have a smoke. You can go have a cig. And they're like, you're an ass. You literally I was like, whatever. I'm better than you.
Man, I think people smoke cigarettes just so they get more breaks at work.
Oh, well, you know,
it's like, well, where's my break? Well, you don't smoke. You don't get a break. It's like teaching for ZERT. I don't get any breaks because I don't smoke. Maybe I'll just start smoking whenever I do
but Paul, classes. Look how good you look in this picture. Look at that.
What? I was probably about 30 pounds heavier. You can't see it. At least my hat's straight.
Your hat is straight. Today,
man, look how good Jamie. Look how good and slim Jamie looks.
You know what? That Jamie Franks, he's a slender fella.
You know, that's you know, he gets, you know, every day he gets a paycheck to, you know, go to. Does the Navy call it physical training or do they call it something else?
No, I don't know. Listen, that's going to be a conversation.
They probably call it water yoga or something. You know,
listen, that's a conversation between you and Jamie. You two can fight it out, Monty.
I'll just sit on him. We're not fighting. I'll just sit on him and have to tap out if I could catch him. Probably.
Well, anyway, that's right. You'd have to catch him.
But I'm acclimated to, you know, sitting on people to win fights.
Jesus,
so
that's horrible. Would you be acclimated? And we're just going to keep saying we're going to keep folks. We're just going to keep saying the word, and you're going to make this a drinking game. You guys are 45 minutes. 45 minutes. I want you to rewind this, start it over, and then take a shot or a drink every time we say the word acclimated. Go.
Or like tonight, you guys are going to be having nightmares about that word waking up in the morning. Like, I can't get
Would you get acclimated
to
Jamie out shooting you?
Well, I mean, is it a shooting competition or is it a physical competition? Because I think the only test that we ever did where we kind of competed against each other was in Oklahoma. And I kind of remember me accomplishing that drill. That's all I got to say is I achieved the standard during that.
Oh boy, gosh, he's going to listen to this one. We're definitely going to get a comment on this video or this podcast.
Hey,
from the senior chief.
And you know, you always brought up the fact that Ivan could outshoot me, and I don't remember Ivan doing that drill either. Well, I think out of that whole entire class, the only person that accomplished that drill, I'm not even going to mention any names. There was only one person that did it to standard. Yeah. But here's the deal. I've never done that drill before, but I've done it enough. And that actually brings up a really good point. I haven't done that drill, but I'm very acclimated to knowing what my times are. Because when I train, I know what my draw time is. I know what my transition time is. I know how fast I can shoot a target with a rifle and a pistol. I know how fast my relays are. I'm very acclimated to shooting under stress, and Jamie is too. And that's one of the benefits of competition shooting. And, you know, when you're taking ZERT classes or classes or courses out there, it is very important to train to a certain standard. And I just don't think that people are acclimating. There's that drinking game again, to preparing themselves for things that might happen. And so, you know, we're making fun of this and we're joking around about it, but it's very important when you're training, you just don't go to a flat range and sit out there and put one round on. You need to train to a certain standard and focusing on speed and accuracy, adding stress. And I think that's one of the key things that ZERT does and their training classes, whether it's Jamie out on the West Coast or me out here on the East
Yep.
side. He does a very good job doing it. I watch
Yeah.
his videos, I watch his classes, and it's and part of that changing, is you got to deal with failing. Like
Oh yeah.
if you don't go out there and do stuff to, people, talk about Michael Jordan and how many times Michael Jordan's failed, or, but in order for him to have all those and, NBA championships, imagine how many times he had to fail and get used to that to be
Of course,
the greatest of all time.
Right. Yeah.
Just like every other successful athlete out there.
How many times as an instructor in one of your classes, when the buzzer or when the shot timer first comes out, everybody is fumbling, nervous, throwing shots, freaking out, and they're just like, they're really messed up over the little beep. I mean, is that pretty often, would you say?
I would say that it's higher than how like in a baseball game, your batting average, like you can bat 250 and that's below average, but 250, it's good. More often or not, that
they are freaked out by the shot timer.
Like they're number one, they're not used to it usually in classes, but you go to a professional, you go to one of these high, like these shooting matches where there's, you got, in a shooting match, when you go to multi-gun nationals, you usually have a super squad.
Sure.
You usually have a squad of people with the Jerry, the Lenas, and that's like the ultimate goal for me. Like my high point, I was never going to be in this squad, but out in Las Vegas to even RO this squad, you got to act like you've been there before. So you can't be on the line telling Jerry Michlik, make ready and ask him to sign an autograph, or anything. So as an RO, but to be able to watch these people shoot, to be right next to them, ROing them and learn from them, like that timer is just, I always use the reference of, if you've watched Man on Fire with Denzel Washington, and he's teaching the girl, she's on the blocks, and every time he fires the gun, she jumps, it startles her. I was like, man, the shot timer, the only purpose of that timer is to set you free.
So what's hilarious about
I can do what I do.
Right. So what's even more awesome about what you just said about Man on Fire is literally in the show, one of the shows that we just did with Jamie just referred to the same movie and he was talking.
That's a great movie.
It is a great movie. And it's when I guess she asked Dakota Johnson about, they asked Denzel's character, is he good at shooting? And he was like, you're not good. You're either trained or untrained. So it's two references to Man on Fire. So folks, if you haven't seen that movie, go out and watch it. So the point that I'm going to with the students and the shot timer, by the end of the 8-hour class, does that shot timer affect those people anymore?
It depends on if they choose to get acclimated, because some of them,
I mean, I was going to set you up to use it, but you used it without me setting me up.
All right. Well,
I was going to set you up
not
to
that
use
we rehearsed.
Not that we rehearsed
some
at all.
people at the end of the course they're probably stressed out more. And the biggest thing isn't just the shot timer. It's the fact that there's people around watching them. Sure. There's so many things that stresses people out. It's like, man, the only thing that's stressing you out is you. I have nothing to do with it. And Jamie can attest to this. So many man, whenever I go up to a stage and they say, are you ready? And I'm standing there and they say, stand by, and that timer goes out, man, I'm not thinking anything. I'm not thinking about anything but those targets. I have a plan. I'm going to execute that plan. I'm not worried about, I've been the last shooter on the stage and had Super Squad behind me. Every one of those guys watching me, because now they're going to sit there and analyze what I did. And they're making a stage plan based on that. And I'm like, I could sit there and think about, oh my goodness, all these sponsored pro shooters are watching me and stress out and fail. Or I can do, you know what? They're human beings like just like me. They don't matter, and shoot my plan. And
of course.
And I'd like to say that now, of course, I didn't shoot as great as them. I got bad knees. I'm not, it is what it is. And those are excuses, but you don't let the peanut gallery, who cares? Just do your thing at your ability. outside distractions. And that's why I think competition shooting is amazing, because it teaches you to black out, to basically block out the noise. And there's a lot of
Yeah.
noise going on in our excuse me, in our daily life. There's a lot of noise, and it's our choice whether we want to listen to that noise and listen to all the negative stuff, or you know what, and it's okay to absorb some of that stuff and learn from it, but most of that noise doesn't matter. We just
No.
try to every day try to get a little bit better, a little bit greater, and become more acclimated in a positive way.
Right. I mean, you owe it to yourself and to the people around you to adjust to situations, adapt and overcome. I mean, acclimated is just another word for adapting and overcoming. I mean, at this point, you know, and we all do it. I'm sure that we all do it. And I'm sure if you were sitting here listening, and I mean you out there as listeners, if you're listening to this show and you start to realize some of the hurdles that you've been experiencing, whether it's at your job, whether it's you just your daily life, whether it's with your family, you're probably figuring out how to adapt and overcome those hurdles, and you really just knock them out of the way. And that's, I mean, that's part of this. That's exactly what we're talking about here. I know that I do it every day, and Paul, I'm sure that you do the same thing. You've got a new situation happening. I mean, we all have them, and you're figuring it out. But you're not just throwing in the towel when it comes to having that hurt. And I say a hurdle because I don't want to say they're easy to overcome, but once you learn how to do it, it becomes a little bit easier.
Well, we can substitute that word hurdle for change. We all have
Sure.
changes, and some of them are positive and some of them are negative. And I don't know if you're referring to this, but I'm just gonna, like, my daughter moved in with me about a month ago, and that's
Yeah.
major change. It's
Right.
major change for me and for her. I think
Right.
she's got to get more acclimated than me, because as a 19-year-old female living with dad for the first time, and believe me, it's great. It is amazing. I wouldn't want it any other way, but
Yeah.
there's a lot of stuff that we have to adapt to. We have to overcome.
Right.
I had a way of life,
Yep.
and I think not just, with a daughter, but, relationships. I'm so used to being single. If I ever got into a relationship, or the next relationship I get into, man, there's a lot of changes that I have to make, because I'm so
Sure.
used to doing stuff on my own, but that's part of it. And of course there's a lot of, I wouldn't have all my space and all my time, and everything. But I think part of being in a relationship, we you want to make those changes. You make sacrifices, but it's sacrifices in a good way, for like the common, for the cause
Right. Uh-oh.
and good. And to me, that's what it's all about: becoming a better person. And this
Yeah.
is helping me not only become a better father, but a better person overall, because, and that's like the ultimate goal. So I don't think, as I'm writing down my list, I'm sitting here thinking about all the things that we have to make adjustments and changes to, whether it's relationships, but, and we talked about this the other day. We try not to get in too much about politics, but politics is an everyday thing. And, no matter who became the president 4 years ago or who becomes the president, we can look at that in a positive or negative light. And I'm not talking about, oh, this guy's the president. We have to we have to make adjustments, changes to that. And we can sit around and be negative all the time, and choose to just get on social media and post all these negative, memes, and just be disgruntled. Or, we can do something about it, in a positive way. And becoming acclimated to somebody running for president is like, okay, these are the changes that are going to happen. I need to make adjustment to those changes, for the good. It's like, we live in a time right now with, it's cost of living is a little bit more expensive. So because of that, we can't go out and maybe purchase the same things that we used to purchase back in the day.
Right.
Our means to survive and to live, we might have to make sacrifices. And I know we've talked about making sacrifices plenty of times on, on the phone, on the phone together. You've mentioned, maybe having to sell certain things. And that's just, accepting this change and, 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 and just accepting this to be able to drive forward. And I don't want to say, I forget where I was going with that.
No, that's okay. I mean, I get it, because it's hard.
Everything always can't be in a positive light. We have to make choices and make changes, in
And
our
some of
lives
those,
to be able to.
right.
Go ahead.
And some of those changes are sacrifices.
Exactly.
And it's okay to make sacrifices for things to end up in a better situation. And, people, there's not a successful person out there that has never failed. And adjusting to what you think is failure is very, very hard. But when I addressed this to a friend of mine about, just not thinking things are going right, or just obviously being a business owner, they looked at me and said, I mean, quite honestly, I don't know how you even started it. He was like, I wouldn't have the confidence or strength to even start it, much less be where you're at with it. So, that's something to think about. If you're failing at something that somebody is afraid to even try, did you fail, or did you just nut up and went after it? So I don't know.
Yeah, it's like the saying, I would rather have tried and failed than to have never tried at all. And I think like that's, and there's a lot of fear there, but holy cow, the most successful people out there, like we said before, are the people that probably failed the most.
Right.
So, I mean, how many times you gotta fail to succeed? I'm guessing when you talk to somebody that's, that is at that level, they could probably tell you they probably failed more than anybody else. And is that a bad thing? Probably, absolutely. I mean, my whole entire military career wasn't, I think about everything that I did wrong. And, but honestly, a lot of that stuff, every event that we ever did made us the person that we are right now, that puts us in this place right here. So how can you say, it's like, yeah, I'll make these changes because that put me on this podcast today with you, or put me in a situation where I have really, I wake up at 5 a.m. every morning and go out with my daughter. We walk down the lane and we sit there and talk about stuff. I wouldn't change that for the world.
No,
like that's pretty much, that's the high, that's a high point of every day, to be able to do that with her. And that positive change.
Yeah.
And which is what, I think we should be striving for change on a daily basis, because we live in in an ever changing world. Like nothing is going to stay like this. Yep. So, and things are going to impact us in a positive way and a negative. It's like, how do we deal with it?
Yeah. By just strapping up your boots and facing it head on is obviously the best way. Making sure that you don't run from it or fear it. It is inevitable. Change is always going to come, obviously. It's funny you brought that up. I was looking at something today, and it was technology based. It was internet based. And I started to have the thought, and maybe it's a show that we'll do down the road. But I started to think about, could we survive as a society without the internet anymore? Could we survive with, a mobile flip phone that just dialed numbers and that was it? Could we survive having to use a newspaper to look up movie times on a Sunday, or call the theater waiting for your, press 1 if you want to see this movie? Like, could we do that? And I think that is a great question, and I think that is going to be a great episode and something that we'll probably talk about soon. But we've all had to adapt to the change that we see now with the way that we live. Could we go back?
I think I have an answer which is going to ruin that episode. And
well, you're not going to
I
be on
think
it, Paul.
okay, well, I think I
I'm
have an
just
answer that's
kidding.
going to ruin the episode. But I think to
kidding.
answer your question, us as a society, us as a world, yes, we can survive. Are there people in that world that can't? Absolutely, because they can't become acclimated. They are so used to certain things, because I mean, look at the world 100 years ago, 200 years ago. Man, if you take away this technology, there are people out there that are going to be able to, that are going to be able to live and survive because they've become, they can adapt, overcome,
Yeah.
improvise. They can kill their own food. They can gather, they can hunt, and there are people out there that are not going to be able to because they're, and this is going to probably get me some grief, and it doesn't matter.
Gonna ruffle
They're not
some
going to be able to
feathers.
because they're weak, and they're weak, and they're going to quit, and they're going to say, I don't know how, and I
Right.
can't, and the strong will survive and the weak will perish. And you know what? That I don't want to say, I'm going to sit here and say that's okay, but you need to figure out what side you're on. And I think that's the cool thing about ZERT and the stuff that we talk about is we talk about, it ain't about prepping, man. There might be an event that happens out there. And what's your decision? Are you going to be that person that says, well, I don't know how to survive? Or you're going to be that person that makes things happen. And the cool thing with, with my brother-in-law, and, last week we butchered a cow. And I'm out there from, one of his cows broke its leg. He's like, hey, I need some help because it's a cow and it's not small. So I go out there and we shoot the cow and we sit there and we skin it and we butcher it. And then we make these, we make hamburger, we make jerky, we make some roast. Well, man, I know how to do that. And that's
Right.
one more things on the list that Lord forbid something happen. It's got nothing, we can sit here and talk about the internet, but if something happens in this world, are you going to be able to acclimate yourself to it? Or are you going
Right.
to sit there and, I mean, look at heat waves. You see people all the time. It's like, oh my goodness, the power goes down. I don't have air conditioning. Really? That's the thing that you're sitting there on your iPhone talking about not having air conditioning when you can sit there and do something. Your only saving grace is hopefully sometime soon that air conditioner is going to come back on.
Right.
Well, how about preparing for that a little bit,
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and that's something minor, but that's the stuff that we got to look at is I don't want to say we're doomed as a society, but there are certain people that are doomed, Lord forbid, if something happens.
Yeah. And I think as we close out this episode, there always seems to be a kind of a final thought. And I think this kind of sums it up right here. You have to ask yourself, and again, I'm talking to you out there as the listeners, you have to ask yourself, are you able to adapt and overcome if this goes sideways, if the world goes dark and we go back to a analog world? Where will you end up? Do you know how to get your own food? Do you know how to navigate without your compass? Do you know how to do some of these things? Will you be able to acclimate to a society that is no longer digital? And that's a rhetorical question, but ask that to your family, to your friends. And I mean, that's a great, you're sitting around dinner, instead of talking about which sports ball team won the night before, or,
Sports
the
ball.
shitty, right. Yeah. The shitty debate or interviews from our, presidential candidate and our president. Talk about stuff that matters and put a situation out there like, okay, the grid went down. You've got no food. You've got no ability to get food. The only thing you have is, a bow and arrow and access to wildlife. What are you doing? and, have that conversation. Those are great conversations to have. And then let us know what you guys think, or what the answers are. I'd love to hear some of that stuff.
I'm going to take it one step further there and kind of key in on that. And you just said something really important. You said, what would do if the world went sideways? And I'm going to ask the same question in a different way. And I'm going to ask you, what are you going to do when your world goes sideways? Because that's something that's guaranteed is going to happen. Your world is going to go sideways. Something is going to happen, whether somebody important in your life dies, and you hate to bring that up. We talked about death a couple episodes ago, but something's going to happen that you're not planning for. How are you going to react to it? How are you going to adapt? And you have every right to have that time to mourn, or to assess, or to take a break, or to think. But there's going to be a time where you're going to actually have to do. You're going to have to put some plan into action. And what is that plan? Or you can sit there and wait for everybody else and sit on the sidelines. We used to have the saying in the military is there's 3 types of people: those who made things happen, those who watch things happen, and those who wonder what happened. And you get to pick which person that you are. And I don't want to be that person that's sitting around wondering what happened. But we have we have those choices to make. And I don't know, man, you can be whatever type of person you want to be. I kind of want to be proactive. And stuff, and it's just a different way of looking at that. But it's not when something's going to happen, it's if. And it's not the zombie apocalypse happens, but somewhere down the road, there's going to be a drastic change in your life, and you have to make a choice.
Right. I agree. Folks, that's going to do it for us today. These shows, we try and keep them down to an hour, even though I know when it's me and Paul, or me and Jamie, or me, Paul and Jamie, we can talk for hours. But I don't want to, we all don't have that kind of time in our lives, and we have other things to do, which is why the audio version of this is great, because you just put it on the background and you do what you got to do. Those who like to see our faces, obviously we appreciate that as well. I mean, when you look at these 3 faces, and those party shirts, you just can't go wrong.
Speaking of party shirts, I think that might need to be updated sometime soon.
Oh, you mean this one?
Ooh,
or how about, you like that one?
I like that, man. That would look, black is, they just say I think black is slimming.
Black is very slimming.
That would look really good.
It would. Yeah. So folks, obviously, if you're just listening and you didn't see it, we have the new party shirts that are up available for pre-order right now. But that's a whole nother episode and a whole nother day. Today, I want to say thank you, as I always do, as I end these shows. I always say thank you for spending some of your time listening to the show or watching the show. Obviously, we appreciate all of the support. We appreciate all of the new members here at ZERT and all of our existing members. I can just say thank you. And until next time, Paul?
Yeah. One of the things, and we already did our little parting words, but one of the things we always talk about in the military is we should, every day, and it doesn't matter what aspect of your life is, I ask everybody out there, every day, try to improve your fighting position. And whether it's on a mental, physical, read a book, go to the gym, work out, take a walk, do something. And part of improving that fighting position is, we can sit around and feel sorry for ourselves, or we can, kind of look at our situation, adapt to it, and become better acclimated, and set yourself up for success, and your situation up for success. So that's all I got.
Awesome. Okay, guys, until next time, you stay safe out there. ZP002 out.
XP0311 Delta out.